Um, I want to talk to you, and some wisdom will probably flow from this. I won't be very long, and I want to give you some points and some things to consider. I'm gonna be very transparent with you if I can. I had a rough day. Today was rough, and it was one of those days where you have to decidedly look at and focus on why you're in it, for the reasons and for the outcomes and for the objectives and for the goals. I have a lot that my hands are committed to. I have a lot that my heart is focused on. I have a lot that my mind is committed to. And that requires a massive amount of concentration, a massive amount of dedication. And it pulls on you psychologically, emotionally, physically. And so today was one of those days. It was a very prototypical Monday. Side note, for those of you that are not preachers or those of you that are not pastors, will you leave us alone on Mondays? I'm not supposed to say that, but y'all know I'm not a part of the union. But will you please stop texting us at 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. and don't talk to us until about 2 or 3. This is our Saturday. We don't get a Saturday because our Saturday is spent in study and in the scriptures. Now, I'm going to have a different conversation about pulpit and pew abuse. We're not ready for that today. I had a conversation with one of my daughters about the privileges of both and the issues of both. And if I say something about that tonight, it's not going to come across right. So, chill. We chill. Don't be texting us at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. We not up like you up. It takes a lot out of us. So you need to chill. But I do, I do want to talk to you about something that is important that I experienced that I think will give you some wisdom and that I think that will help you grow if you have ears to hear. And I think if you have a heart to perceive. Yesterday, I had the absolute privilege. I do have my apron on because I put some neck bones on for tomorrow. I put some pork ribs on. I put some string beans and white potatoes on, some smoked turkey necks on. I got some dirty rice I'm working on. And a peach cobbler maybe, but that's all for tomorrow. I just put it on tonight so that while I'm resting, it can be on. I needed to clear my head. So that's why I have my apron on. Please forgive me. If it becomes too much of a distraction, I'll take it off. Yesterday, I had the privilege of going to several events. I don't normally do that in the city of Chicago, but I did. And yesterday I was at an event. I'm going to post after this message and after this admonishment, the proof of it. But I was at an event. My cousin was there, Stevenson Jr., and he and I are like fraternal twins. We're cousins by blood, but we're fraternal twins, and it is never a good idea for us to be in a service together. There were so many delegates and so many dignitaries in the room. I was like, oh, geez, this is a awful lot to be around. And this is going to mean something for you if you will hang on and be patient. I got there, and when I got there, there was a man who said, hey, Dr. Stevenson, I want to make sure that I receive you well. So he came, and when I pulled up, he noticed my car and pulled me up to a seat, and I was cool. I did the church finger. Anybody familiar with the church finger? Y'all know what that is? I did here. I did like this. I walked in, I ducked my head. I'm 6'1", so I'm not that tall, but I'm tall enough to be a distraction in a service. I did like him. And he led me to the third row. The pastor noticed me. and said, I don't know why you're here and not sitting in my seat. So he suggested that I sit in his seat, and I'm a submitted man, or I try to be, because I believe that that's the key to all authority is submission. Y'all don't believe that, I do. And so he insisted that I sit in his seat, and I acquiesced. I prayed and prayed what I felt like was God's heart for the gentleman that I was there for. And I just interceded. I assumed the position. I want you to just say that real quick. This is not my topic, but I feel a little passion here. When you write this phrase, assume the position, write that there. I assume the position. I legitimately assume the position. I was not who I am, what I've done, what I've seen, what I've known. I assumed the position. I was there as an intercessor, which means that was the only identity, that was the only occupation, that was the only position I was there to achieve. I assumed the position. And so I was there as an intercessor. It didn't matter how many degrees I had, or what I knew, or how many nations I've been to, or how much money I've made, or how many buildings I own. None of that mattered. I assumed the position. I'll get there later. But I assumed the position. And I prayed, and it was great. The man of God received. I'm really believing or hoping that he gets the victory tomorrow. But I did it. It was good. So then, afterwards, there were some choirs that sang. I'm getting to my point, be patient. And there was some musical selections and all of that. And after that, I was talking to my cousin. We were cutting up. You could never imagine the type of stuff me and my cousin talk about. You don't want to be a part of that. And I turned my back around, I had my book bag on, and I was getting ready to leave out. I felt prompted to go to another meeting, so I was like, but I felt something tug at my leg. This is where we're going tonight. Please stay on. And when I turned to see what was pulling at my leg, it was a boy. This boy was a small-framed child. I'm going to post one of the vids and one of the pictures after I get off here. And there was a boy that grabbed my leg, and his mom was running towards me voraciously. And when I looked to see what was nagging at me and what had grabbed me, in my fashion, one of the things, and this is a caveat, one of the things that often bothers me is that people are shocked at how personable I can be. It grieves me a great deal when I meet people in stores, in the mall, in the airport, and they're shocked that I say hi or that I hug or any of that. But anyway, this kid ran up to me. And I said, "What's up, bruh? How are you, buddy?" And he said, "Oh my gosh." That was all he could get out. So by the time he got to me, his mom was running up, and I think maybe an aunt. Please pay attention to this. This is important because this is an ethic of mine, a standard of mine. His mom and maybe his aunt was walking up, and his mom immediately tries to maybe casually restrain him, but by the time he grabbed a hold of my leg, it was too late. And his mom said, "You don't understand. He don't focus. He don't concentrate. He can't handle his day if he ain't listen to you." She said these words, quote, "My entire house shuts down when Dr. Stevenson is live, when he's speaking, when he is broadcasting." And I think that people assume that because of the range of my influence, whatever that is, the range of my voice or the volume of my thought and opinion, I think that people assume or assert that I am common with that, and I am not. So dude runs up to me, and the mom was like, "I'm so sorry." When he comes home from school, she's giving me this story, this brief story. She's like, he can't focus or talk or think. You are a hero of his. So I am in full-fledged PR mode, right? I'm like, yo, hey, man. And when I looked at him in his eyes, he started to cry. He started to cry, and he cried uncontrollably. He grabbed me, and I was looking at him, and he was kind of laugh crying in a way where it was like he didn't know how to manage the moment, but it was very clear that him and his mother were trying to express that I was a hero of his. So I knelt down. I'm going to show you the pictures of it when I'm done. I knelt down and I said, "Hey, bud, what's your name?" He told me his name, and immediately after he got his name out, he started to weep. I wasn't good. I was a bit thrown aback. I was caught off guard because this guy, I think his mom told me he was 10. He may have been 11, but he was 10. And I later found out that his mom is a sickle cell survivor and advocate, and so is he. And when I knelt to him, he cried so hard that I started to wipe his tears off his face. And I held him. I couldn't even get to the first point of the introduction because here's my framework. In my mind, I'm not a celebrity. And in my mind, I'm not an idol. And in my mind, I'm just available. So I struggle today. Like many of you, I've always struggled to see the scale or the scope of my influence and my impact upon people and the way they think and the way they decide and the way they believe and the way they commit. In my mind, I'm a man. I cannot tell you how many times yesterday I told people, please, I'm a man like you. Because people were like, there was a guy who said, I remember you from 1998. There's a guy who walked up to me and said, I remember you from 1998. And who would have known that a giant was in my midst? And I was like, I'm looking behind me like, I'm not a giant. I'm a man just like you. I fight like you. I war like you. I struggle like you. I'm human. But this kid walked up to me and grabbed me. And when I kneeled down to greet him and I looked at him, I remembered me. And I remembered the price. I remembered the pain. I remembered the process of having to be a prodigy, one selected from amongst his brethren, one crowned in the midst of a culture that could not perceive or conceive him or understand him. And that's where I get my endurance from. My stamina does not come from physical exercise. It absolutely comes from remembering where I was when the Lord called me and when he marked me. So anyway, I reached down to this kid and I grabbed him and he would not stop crying. He would not stop crying. I promise you I'm not being dramatic. I'm going somewhere. So I grabbed him, because I'm an affectionate man. And I started wiping his face. I said, and I'm gonna show you the video. I looked at him and I said, you got to stop crying. I'm a thug, and people think I'm soft. So you got to stop. If you follow me, I'm literally saying this to him. If you follow me and you study me, you know I'm tough. Stop making me cry in front of people. He said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But he couldn't stop crying. I was there for a bigger purpose and a broader cause and much larger reason. But I wasn't thinking about none of that when I went to sleep last night. What I was thinking about when I went to sleep last night is this. If I gave up, if I stopped, if I quit, if I allowed the transactions, the interactions, the unfairness, the injuries, the lacerations, the piercings, the narratives of everything I've experienced to hit me in the way that they could, there would be a him that wouldn't have confidence in the gospel and wouldn't have confidence in the future, and that wouldn't even conceptualize what the kingdom of heaven looks like as manifest on earth. I held that baby. I'm up, and I'm gonna put it up so you can go back and watch it. There was about 4 videos taken. I got about 2 and some pictures. But when I let him go, I was like, dude, you can't give up. That's what this live is about. I know I took a long way to get here, but I was like, this is crazy. I've deliberately protected my children, my wife, my adopted daughters from church drama and church politics. I've done the best in my ability to make sure that they didn't get as hurt as I did or wounded as I did by the rigmarole of it. But I can't help but think about my grandkids, or everybody's talking about millennials and those guys. I'm thinking about those after them, because at this point, millennials are grandparents. So when I let the boy go, I felt convicted. I couldn't even focus. I wasn't even clear about the reason I was at that meeting was not my priority at that point. I was there at that point, at the close of that session, like, what is the consequence? What is the repercussion? What is the aftermath of me saying I would rather give this to somebody else or let somebody else handle it? You know, there are people who can never conceptualize what it is to have a revolving door in your chest. There are also people who will never understand what it is to be pursued passionately by paparazzi. There are also idioms, and there are also unfair standards and measurements from the pulpit to the pew. If the pulpit expresses its pain, it's bleeding and abusive and unethical. If the pew expresses it, though, they get support and momentum and movement around their stuff. And there's no mutual joining ground around the privilege that exists in both spaces. I've lived it, and so has my family, and so is my world. But this one kid, that's all it took, was for me to be convicted, for me to be rebuked, for me to be reminded of, okay, pulpit abuse is a real thing, right? But pew abuse is also a real thing. We don't get to have that fair conversation because, you know, if the pulpit is abusive, there's more instances and examples of pulpits coming back saying, I was wrong, I did it wrong, I didn't do it right, I didn't say it right, I didn't handle it right. But the inversion of that is that there's not a lot of examples where the pew says, I was abusive and I used her, or I used him, or I raped him, or I raped her, or I was a leech. You don't get that. So there are certain concepts that exist that we don't want to really have the real conversation about, because when we bleed, we're the wolves. When they bleed, they're the victims, and they get a lot more instant support, especially if they say it first. All it took for me was a kid to say that the way he finished his homework and the way he completed his day and the way he believed God was to listen to me every day. I need a limo, off-duty policeman, 39 bodyguards. I just needed a kid to say, hey, you're my hero. Now, here is where I want you to really think and meditate on. And I hope you hear my heart behind this. I really do. I didn't ask, no, I want to mind my business. I didn't ask to be nobody's hero. It's uncomfortable for me. You know, I'm a brash personality. I'm pretty abrasive, whatever. But I didn't ask to walk in nobody's school or the hallway of my church and see my face on there and they call me Black History. I'm like, I've not done anything yet. In my mind, I've not accomplished much. In other people's minds, they're like, sir, you reshaped and reframed church history and church conversation as we know it. In my mind, I'm like, no, I didn't. All I did was say and what everybody was thinking and just had the bravery to not care and do it differently. In my mind, I don't see myself the same way. So Sunday's moment for me was a bit much because it helped me see, darn, if you cave and if you quit and if you let discouragement do what discouragement wants to do, and if you allow the betrayals, the attacks, the assaults, the disloyalty, the outright prostitution to take hold of you, there will be a generation that is still confused, unclear, ambiguous, discombobulated about, undecided about the gospel. So it left me in a real weird space, honestly, because I'm like, yo, I could have came here, prayed for this candidate and went on with my life and got me some sushi or something smothered afterwards. But I saw a generation and I saw the consequence of my no and the power of my yes. So the point of this is to encourage a lot of you that are watching me that, you know, I think anybody that is a quote unquote hero, I don't think they aim to be, whether it's Dr. King, whether it's Malcolm X, whether it's whoever. I don't think they wake up one day and say, I want to be somebody's hero. I think what happens is they obey a passion, a cause, a burden. In my instance, and in my case, I promise you I was only trying to obey God. And if this discourages you or distracts you, then sue me. But I wasn't trying to change the world. That was not my goal, and that was not my intent. That was not my motive. That was not my brand. That was not something I wanted to sell, not something I wanted to do. I was trying to obey God because I resolved very early on, probably somewhere about 1997 to the year 2000. I was very resolved that, because of what I've come from and because of what I was born to, if I don't obey God, I'm going to lose my mind and I'm going to be victim to, and I'm going to be the product, an agenda, a program. Something's going to devour me and my seed. So I was only trying to obey God. And in my obedience to God, stuff was born and came to be. Patterns were born. Paradigms were born. I planted more churches on accident than a lot of these guys have planted on purpose. And yet they attack and they criticize and they judge. Anyway, so my intention was not to be anybody's superstar. It's not my motive. I actually didn't want the attention. I prefer not to have it so I could do what I want to do. But it came. And in my availability, the Lord physicalized himself in my life in such a way where it would testify to generations that I think will believe in the gospel, those that have turned away from it even. You'll hear it over the next week or so, or over the next 2 weeks or so, but I feel like one of the complexities that I have, and many of you that are watching me have, is that we're ministering to an agnostic church. And I understand that that's a phrase that you can't conceptualize all the way, because the implication is that if you are a church, you have a belief, but that's not the case today. There is a church who don't know what they believe, who they believe, why they believe. They can't even remember when they believed. And so I have the issue, the challenge of Gabriel Leonard, good to see you, Prophet, of ministering to an agnostic church, people that are just living their lives in, through, and with, and from questions, and through the power of God, the power of the Holy Ghost. And we got questions to answer. So at the end of the day, what my encouragement is, and what my admonishment is, and what my warning is to you is simple. I went the long route to get here. Whether you know it or not, whether you see it or not, whether you realize it or not, whether you talk about it or not, it is a dangerous thing for you to give up. I'd like for you to, just tonight, tomorrow I'll find something jovial to say, but no matter who comes, who goes, what opens, what closes, what stalls, what moves in advancement, it really is dangerous for you to give up. You have no clue why your pressures are your pressures, why your problems are your problems, why your circumstances are your circumstances, why your training is your training, why the season has been what it is. You don't know, and to assume it is presumptuous. To assume that you know everything that the Spirit of God is teaching you. It's proud, it's arrogant, it's braggadocious, it's ostentatious, it's high-minded, it's heady. But when you humble yourself and realize that maybe I don't know everything God is teaching me, and maybe I need to humble myself and focus myself to what's next. So that's my warning to you. You don't know what's at stake, what's at risk, what the cost is. If you stop and if you quit, it will be hard. and it will be challenging, and it will be complicated. But I want you to focus and realize what's at stake. Matthew Stevenson III would preach to that gentleman that hugged me Sunday in the same strength and in the same power and with the same energy that he would 20,000 people in a dome. That's how deeply that impacts me. Now, if you're not made of that same caliber of whatever, then I don't know that anybody's going to testify that they were set free by what you do or who you are, or you know, you just got the ministry talent show thing going on. But if your motive is to liberate captives and to change the trajectory of stories and to narrate history and to trace out and track out the future, you can't give up, man. You just got to focus. You got to focus. And the harsh truth is, people are going to come. People are going to go. And you're going to be shocked at who stays, at who stands, at who sticks. You're going to be shocked at who's mature. You're going to be shocked at who's immature. You're going to be shocked at what they say in front of your face. You're going to be shocked at what they say behind your back. You're going to be shocked. At the end of the day, you need one thing to focus on. And in my life, I literally would have lost my mind if not for Calvary. If not for Calvary. Calvary, Golgotha, is a centralizing place, is a common ground, a leveling place for those of us that were called to something that we frankly did not ask for. Because here's the and I say this humbly, it's going to sound arrogant, but I could be successful without this. Church, ministry, all of I got other ways. I'm not dumb. And I'm pretty decorated otherwise. But I'm yoked. And I'm bound. And I'm cuffed. I'm chained. So I have to find an even thing to focus on to keep me out of offense and out of woundedness and out of rebellion and out of deception and out of pride and out of self-centeredness and all of that. And the only place that I've found that is effective is Calvary. So that happened to me. I'm going to post the picture, or one of the pictures, of me wiping this guy's tears and of me begging him to not do this to me because I don't want to look weak and I'm a thug and he can't make me cry. But I got an email or a statement yesterday from his mom again. And his mom said, "Mommy, I met my hero, but I forgot to tell him that our birthdays were the same day." I know it don't matter much to you, but you don't know what it is to be me. And stuff like that, when I want to walk away from it all and run from the tabloids and run from the Judases and walk away from the Noadiahs and smack Miriam in her face. And I have a kid that's 10 that runs up to me in a story of infirmity, who can't focus without hearing my teaching. And then he closes it with, "Our birthdays are the same day." I'm convicted deeply. So, that happened to me yesterday. It was the highlight of my day, to be very frank. Had a lot of dope things that happened, but God knows what ministries need what reminders, because Elijah's going to want to quit. Isaiah may have a change of heart. David's going to get in his emotions. Jesus is going to go to Gethsemane. And because of that, the Spirit of God knows what needs to happen and what needs to be said to align your focus and your consecration and your concentration. That happened to me. Just don't quit. Stop. It's dangerous. Have a day, have a week, have a season, but keep going. Please. It's imperative. You don't know whose life is relying on it. Yes, you could have some other options, some other routes, some other ways, but to give up is sin. Don't do it. All right, I love you. Grace to you in the name of Jesus, who is the Christ of God. Get some rest. All right, talk to you soon.